Hello and welcome back to another command block tutorial. Today's video, we're going to be learning the ancient art of Nah, I'm just kidding. It's airbending. It's airbending. I'm sorry, guys. I had to. Anyways, for today's video, we have 4 special abilities all cooked up based on the show Avatar the Last Airbender, specifically the airbenders in the show. The first of which honestly is my favorite, is something that, if I remember correctly from the show, was something that Aang actually invented himself. Or should I say Ong, just to piss you guys off. If you guys remember in the show, he would have like this kind of ball of air that he could ride around on, and that's basically what we have here. We have this really fun ball of air that you can just use as a really good mode of transportation. And this actually transitions really well into my second ability, which is the ground slam. Basically, if you are in the air for long enough, when you hit the ground, you're going to be doing a damaging ground slam. Next up, oh, that's that. Hold on, let me get some targets here. Now that we have some targets on the ground, we're going to show you the... Wrong one, sorry. We're going to show you the tornado. I don't know why I went underground. There's a weird entity that is tracking underground in that area. I don't know. We're going to ignore that. Let me give you some more entities so you guys can see a little bit better. I keep hitting the wrong thing. Basically, if you hold a breeze rod and you sneak, you're going to send out a sneaking tornado that basically just launches enemies into the air. Pretty cool. And then finally, the last kind of ability that we introduced is, if I go into survival, a smoke screen. So you get a bunch of enemies following you, pull out your sugar, and sneak. And you'll be able to cast a smoke screen that's going to allow you to evade enemies. It's pretty much going to stun any enemy inside. And it's also going to block line of sight, so it's going to work against players as well. It's a really effective smoke screen. But that's it for airbending part 1. Let's get into the actual commands after I do this. Worth. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is this, which is of course the pig ride. So what we're actually going to be doing here is a little bit complicated because for some reason Mojang is weird and doesn't like you to have fun with commands. So for some reason we are not able to actually place command blocks directly onto a pig, or sorry, place a saddle directly onto a pig. What actually ends up happening is we have to structure block a pig named Burst. Oh, I have some commands running, that's why, okay. Give me 1 second to turn these off. So before you do your commands, the first thing that you actually need to do here is come to a structure block, place a structure void in the center, and then summon a pig and name him Burst. Now, I have some particles going. Hold on. And I'm back. So basically, we're going to structure block a pig named Burst. And I just murdered my own pig. Alright, cool. We have a pig named Burst, and then what we're going to do, we're going to go to the structure block, and I should mention that this is actually in a structure void. This way it's not going to be destroying any blocks, and if you haven't used any structure blocks in the past before, just basically give yourself a structure void, type it in like this, so you have save, and you have the structure name piggy, then 111100, like this. We go include entities, and then hit save. This is going to make it so that, oh, actually don't do this yet, because what you need to do first, slap a saddle on that guy. Yeah, here, have a saddle. Oh, it's not going to work because he's in the, hold on. Gotta murder you. We're going to do this real quick, like, alright, you guys ready? Ah. So now that he has a saddle, we're going to go in here, and we're going to click save. Basically what this is now that it's in a structure block, we can actually summon this exact pig, as in having this name and having the saddle on him, at any point we want through commands. So, yeah, that's what you're doing. And like I said, you want to make sure it is in a structure void. Otherwise, if you don't have that whenever you summon in the pig, it's going to accidentally, like, destroy blocks in the area. And we don't want to do that. So we're going to have it in a structure void. But that's basically all you need to do for this. So now I'm going to murder the pig. Congratulations on your murder, pig. And now we're going to actually turn on these commands, and then I'm going to show you what these commands actually do. So the first thing that we actually need to do is give ourselves the tag airbending. Tag at P, add airB. These commands are only going to work if you have this tag, and that way, you know, you don't just have anyone bending, only the airbenders. Now to get into the actual commands of how this specific thing works, is we are checking for the player that has the airbending tag, is holding quartz in their main hands, and unless there's already a pig nearby, a pig named Burst, load in the structure piggy. This just makes it so you're not summoning multiple, but if there is not already a pig nearby, it's going to summon in the pig. Next up, we're going to actually make the player start riding the pig. So the player holding quartz with the airbending tag is going to start riding the nearest pig within 2 blocks. And finally, we're going to give the pig invisibility because, we want to be riding a burst of air, not necessarily an invisible pig. Because, well, I feel like that's obvious. I don't think I need to discuss why that's the case. Anywho, we're actually going to make it now, so if the player is no longer holding quartz, which is what all this stuff does right here, they're going to stop riding the pig, and then the pig is going to get teleported beneath the map. So once the player is no longer riding the pig, it's going to go ahead and teleport the pig directly below the map. This way, it just gets rid of it, so you kind of have like a pocket transportation device. So as you guys can see here, as soon as I stop holding, pig disappears. So it's a really effective device for all kinds of transportation, and also just looks pretty cool, in my opinion. But hey, let me know what you guys think. And we just have a couple more things, and that's going to be the sounds, the teleports, and of course the particles. First, pretty simple, just do this particle. This is actually one of the new particles, and one of the reasons I wanted to wait until this update to do airbending, because we have some really cool new particles that really match well with airbending. And I will note this is on a 0-tick delay. Next up, we have the actual TP command, which is of course on a 0-tick delay as well. What we're doing is checking for the player holding quartz in their main hands. It's going to teleport the nearest pig rotated the same direction as the player. This just means that whichever direction I'm looking is the same direction the pig is looking, and then the pig is going forward. Pretty simple. And lastly, we're just playing this. This is the sound that has like kind of the wind rushing noise as we're kind of floating along, and this is on a 4-tick delay. And that's it for the first set of these airbending commands. From here on out, we are going to need to do some scoreboards, so I'm just going to bring them up on the side of your screen for you guys. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is adding our first scoreboard, which is NATO T, short for NATO timer. You can type this into chat. You can type it into a command block, put a lightning rod on it, and do this. You could just power with the button too, but that's not nearly as fun now, is it? Anywho, what we're doing is we're making it so that if the player is holding a breeze rod, they are an airbender, but they don't have the tag breeze, so this means that it's only going to happen once per every time the player sneaks. And then we're doing some sneak detection right here. It's going to summon a breeze called NATO. Next up, we're going to give the player, the exact same player, the tag breeze. This makes it so they're not summoning in a ton of tornadoes every single time that they sneak. After this, we're going to make it so if the player is no longer sneaking, they're just going to have the tag breeze removed from them. And finally, we're going to be playing the animation creeper swelling at the tornado, or at the breeze. The reason being is that if we do this animation at the breeze, it actually just removes the head and leaves the tornado, which really works well for what we're trying to do here. But let's get into the actual physics now. Of course, we want it to be constantly teleporting towards the nearest enemy, and this is how we're doing it right here. Just executing at tornado, teleport itself in the direction of the enemy a little bit upwards, facing the nearest mob, so family equals mob, within 50 blocks. Its name is not smoke or burst, so it's not the smoke grenade, it's not the burst, little air burst, it's not another airbender, and it's not the tornado itself. It's the closest one, and yeah, that's all we're doing. It's just, this is what's tracking the tornado to where you want it to go. Pretty simple. Next up, we're going to be adding a scoreboard to the NATO timer of 1, and then we're going to be killing anything with a NATO T of 10 or higher. So remember, I showed you the scoreboard on the side of the screen before, but if I sneak, you guys can see on the right side of the screen, it's counting up. When it hits 10, it perishes. How sad. This just makes it so the tornado doesn't live forever, and of course, start causing lag in your world. Then we have the actual tag effects. This is the stuff that's going to make enemies fly straight up for fun. Basically, all we're doing is executing at the tornado and giving anything within range a really strong levitation effect. So just to remind you guys of what this actually does, set on my tornado, and it just sends enemies straight up into the air. And they'll come down in a second. Maybe. Yeah, pretty fun. So of course you guys can adjust this. You want to make them go up slower but longer, you can make the duration higher and the amount lower. I quite like this number because it just sends things just out of your viewing distance, which I think is really fun. And this is the last little bit that's kind of optional. All we're doing here is executing at the NATO. It's going to be teleporting itself down true. This means that if it gets a little bit too high off the ground, it's going to start coming back down towards the ground, but it won't actually be going through the ground, just down to the level of the ground. Next up, we have the smoke screen. So what we're doing for the smoke screen is we're detecting, pretty similar to how we did the summoning for the breeze. We're just checking, is the sugar in the main hand of the player, and are they sneaking? So we're going to summon an armor stand named Smoke, and then we're going to give the player the tag Smoke. Of course, if the player is no longer sneaking, we're going to remove the tag Smoke, and last but not least, we're going to give the Smoke, that is the armor stand, invisibility. Next up, we're going to add a timer to Smoke. And once again, I should mention, we are using a scoreboard here, the exact same thing, except we're doing Smoke T, and I will show that on the side of your screen. And this is going to be the actual timer for the smoke attack. So just to show you what that looks like, I throw down the smoke, you see the timers counting up on the side, and once it hits 10, it kills it. Lastly, we're going to be doing some particle effects. So this is what's going to give it the big smoke particle. At the smoke, just copy this one for one, and this is on a 0 tick delay. And last but not least, we're also going to be doing the same thing. It's going to give anything that is not an airbender slowness like this. This is how you guys kind of saw earlier. I had the husks following me, but they followed me through the smoke and they lost me. What we're actually doing is we're slowing enemies. That makes them basically unable to move throughout the smoke. And it makes for a great smoke screen overall. And that's really it. That's all you need for the smoke. So let's get into the last but not least part, the ground slam. So similar to what we did before, we're actually making the scoreboard. Once again, just type that in somehow to actually create the scoreboard. And this is what's going to be detecting how long we're in the air. Essentially what happens is that every time I'm in the air, it's going to start counting up my slam score. But if I'm on the ground, it's going to be setting that slam score back to 0. However, if my slam score is high enough, as in I've been in the air for a long enough time, rather than setting it to 0, it's going to actually do the explosion that you guys have been seeing throughout the video. So here's how we're detecting it. We're essentially looking at the airbender. If the block beneath them is not air, or is air, sorry, we're going to be adding slam score of 1 to the player. So as long as I'm in the air, we're going to get a slam score of 1 on a 0 tick delay. The next thing that we're doing is checking at the airbender. If they have a slam score of 0 to 30, and there's not an air block beneath them, meaning that they are once again on the ground, going to simply set their slam score to 0. Easy enough. Now, if you want to make it higher so the players have to be in the air for longer, go ahead and make this number a lot longer, say 60. This means players have to be in the air for a lot longer before they can actually do their ground slam. And then of course you have to do the same thing over here if we want to adjust this, and I'll show you this right now. Just make sure that this slam score in the next command is one number higher than what you previously saw. Because what we're doing here is if the player's slam score is high enough, rather than set their slam score to 0, we're going to set it to -1. This means that the player is actually ready to do the ground slam. And now we can go right here and look at the ground slam. What we're doing is checking for the player. Do they have a slam score of -1, meaning they landed from a high enough height? Give them the breeze, wind, explosion emitter. Next up, we're checking out the player and just simple explosion sound, of course. Then we're going to be doing the actual damage. Of course, you can adjust this however you want, but basically anything that's a mob within your little radius here is going to take damage. We have RM equals 0.4. That means it's not going to hurt you as the individual player, but it is going to hurt everything else. And of course, you can just adjust the damage to as much or as little as you want. Next up, we're going to be adding a little bit of a camera shake. This just makes the impact feel a little bit more real. And finally, once all the slam is said and done, you're setting the player's slam back to 0. This just means it's not going to be constantly spamming explosions, because that would be weird. But instead, we actually get that little explosion right there. Now, of course, you guys will see that I am kind of triggering that a lot throughout this video. However, that's because I'm creative flying. If you're not in creative, you're not really going to be triggering that a ton of times when you wouldn't be intending to. But it is actually a really great pairing for, of course, the nether quartz, because it's probably the easiest way to get up into the air, and then as soon as you land, boom. Now, I would also recommend you might want to turn off fall damage, or give the player slow falling if that's something you wish to do, even though I didn't include it in this tutorial. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed becoming airbenders in Minecraft with commands. Make sure that you guys, if you need any help, are welcome to leave a comment, but I also recommend joining our Discord, the link for which is of course in the video description. There's just a ton of helpful people on there that are going to be able to help you solve all your command issues. Anyways, thank you guys so much for coming. Bye.